I want to continue with patristic shorts. Today we're looking at the writings of Saint Aristides of Athens, who wrote the Apology of Aristides, which is one of the earliest surviving apologetical works that attempted to explain the Christian faith to Roman pagans who had a number of sort of false accusations that they were throwing out against Christians, like, they were atheists, that they took part in orgies, that they practiced incest. Now, the sort of surviving manuscripts that we have of the Apologia is chiefly addressed to the Emperor Hadrian, which means that it was probably written around AD 125. However, we've got a Syriac translation of the Apologia that was addressed to the Emperor Antonius Pius, but that would only place it at around 130. So we're looking in the first quarter of the 2nd century. Eusebius and Jerome tell that Aristides was a philosopher in the city of Athens, and when you actually read his writings, that kind of seems to stand out. It's attempting to answer the charge that Christians are guilty of superstition, atheism, and orgies. It's addressed to Caesar Titus Adrianus Antonius, venerable and merciful from Massianus Aristides, an Athenian philosopher. And the passage that we're going to pick up on is the bit where after the introduction, the greetings, after talking a little bit about why Aristides had the view of God that he did, he uses the first mover argument. He talks about how theology, he touches that one should fear God and should not oppress man. So he's obviously making a link between God and justice. And he goes on to talk about the perfections of God and then the origins of the various different religions. And the bit that we're going to pick up on is where he speaks about the origins of the Christian faith and the people that are the Christians, having spoke about the origins of the barbarian religion, the Greek religion, and the Jewish religion prior to. And we read, "The Christians then trace the beginning of their religion from Jesus the Messiah, and he is named the Son of God Most High. And it is said that God came down from heaven and from a Hebrew virgin assumed and clothed himself with flesh, and the Son of God lived in a daughter of man. This is taught in the gospel, as it is called, which a short time ago was preached among them. And you also, if you will read therein, may perceive the power that belongs to it. This Jesus, then, was born of the race of the Hebrews, and he had 12 disciples in order that the purpose of his incarnation might in time be accomplished. But he himself was pierced by the Jews, and he died and was buried. And they say that after 3 days he rose and ascended to heaven. Thereupon the 12 disciples went forth throughout the known parts of the world and kept showing his greatness with all modesty and uprightness. And hence all those of the present day who believe that preaching are called Christians, and they have become famous." Now, what we note in this short passage, this really beautiful passage, is that there is a clear understanding of the incarnation, that the incarnation is that God clothed himself with flesh. And the understanding that Christ is the Son of God is understood that Christ is God himself. So listen carefully. and he is named the Son of God, the Most High, and it is said that God came down from heaven and from a Hebrew virgin assumed and clothed himself with flesh. So the term Son of God was being used as a reference to God, and not simply the idea that Son of God meant a mere human being that was adopted, but God actually the one who has come down, which obviously indicates a sort of Trinitarian understanding or a Trinitarian framework to that phrase, because Son of God obviously implies another. And we've got the incarnation as being the fact that, you know, the idea of, in the same way that I just pulled up my jumper around my neck because it's a bit chilly here, you've got the fact that the divine clothed himself in flesh, and that this is taught in the gospel. So the gospel here is something that has been preached, but it is also something that a person can access, because he goes on to encourage Caesar, and you, if you will read therein, which means that there is this gospel that was preached and there is this gospel that is written. Now, obviously, he's referring to the gospels that speak about our incarnation, the incarnation of our Lord, which, if memory serves, is Luke. And I always get Mark and Matthew mixed up on this. I'm going to say Matthew. No, Mark. It'll be in the comment section, I'm sure. So you've got this clear telling of this clear reference to a gospel that speaks about the incarnation, 130 AD. And you've got a clear understanding of the incarnation from 130 AD. Clearly not something that was made up, this idea that God became that God came down from heaven and took on human flesh. It wasn't some later invention, as some people, some anti-Christians try to suggest. But then he goes on, but he himself was pierced by the Jews, and he died and was buried. And they say that after 3 days he rose and ascended into heaven. Now here the church father is stating quite clearly that this God who had taken on human flesh died on the cross at the hands of the Jews, and was buried and rose again on the third day. Now, this is important because earlier in this same passage, this same work, Aristides, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, states that he talks about the perfections of God, and he talks about the perfections of God as not requiring. I'll read you some of the perfections of God. Now, when I say that he is perfect, this means that there is not in him any defect, and he is not in need of anything, but all things are in need of him. He has no form, nor any assembly of parts, for whatever possesses these is kindred to things fashioned. He is neither male nor female. He requires neither sacrifice nor libation, nor anything visible. He requires not anything from any, but all living creatures stand in need of him. And it goes on to say that, I say then, sorry, it says earlier in the same passage, I say then that God is not born, not made, an ever-abiding nature without beginning and without end, immortal, perfect, and incomprehensible. So clearly, when Aristides states that God is immortal, that God is perfect and without beginning and without end, he's talking about the divine nature. But then when he states that that Christ was pierced by the Jews, died and was buried, well, if you say of the same nature these two things are true, then obviously that is a contradiction. But clearly, Aristides is saying that this is of the human nature, that It's because of the incarnation, because he clothed himself with flesh, the Son of God lived in a daughter of man, that it's in that human nature that he dies. And so what we've got here is a very early seed of and a very early testament to an incarnational understanding of Christ as being both fully God and fully man, and that in each nature behavior appropriate to that nature is visible, and that the Christian faith originates from this belief, from this Messiah Jesus, and that it originates from the apostles' teaching. And that is the testimony of Aristides. It is his statement about the origins of the Christian faith. It's a really wonderful early piece of work. And what I find interesting particularly is how he looks at the divine, and then how he looks at the human nature of Christ, and how he understands Christ to be divine in humanity. Again, I'll leave you with these words. The Christian then trace the beginning of their religion from Jesus the Messiah, and he is named the Son of the Most High. And it is said that God came down from heaven, and from a Hebrew virgin assumed and clothed himself with flesh, and the Son of God lived in a daughter of a man. Anyway, we will continue our journey through patristic shorts. I hope that you're enjoying them. And the next one we'll be looking at is Justin Martyr. Take care. Bye-bye.